Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling the mystery of Bitcoin's creator, Satoshi Nakamoto.
Oh yeah, this one's a classic.
It really is. We've got articles, Wikipedia, even a Reddit thread that's overflowing with theories.
You always find the best Reddit threads.
I do my best. But really, who is this Satoshi? And why is their identity still such a huge question mark? Is it even just one person?
That's the million-dollar question, or should we say the $69 billion question if you're going by Bitcoin's market cap, huh?
You got that right. Okay, so before we get lost in the maze of who Satoshi might be, let's back up for a sec.
Sure.
Can you give us a quick rundown of what Bitcoin is, for anyone listening who might not be totally up to speed? What made it such a big deal in the world of finance?
You got it. Basically, Bitcoin is a digital currency, right? But it runs on this tech called the blockchain,
Okay, the blockchain.
which you can think of like a massive digital ledger, but instead of it being kept in one place, it's spread across a whole network of computers all around the world.
So that's where the whole decentralized thing comes into play.
Exactly. No single bank or government calling the shots.
Wow, okay. So that's pretty radical, right? Like a financial system where the power is spread out instead of concentrated in just a few hands.
Absolutely. And to make things even more interesting, to add transactions to this blockchain, computers have to solve these super complex mathematical problems.
And that's what's called mining.
Mining, that's it. And the brilliance of Satoshi Nakamoto. They took all these different concepts, cryptography, peer-to-peer networking, digital signatures, stuff that already existed, but they put them together and created something totally new and groundbreaking.
Kind of like taking everyday ingredients and whipping up a gourmet meal.
I like that. And the way Satoshi just disappeared after launching it makes it even more, well, mysterious.
It's like they dropped a bomb on the financial world and then vanished without a trace.
That's one way to put it. Plus, they left us these little clues, like that message embedded in the first block of the Bitcoin blockchain, the Genesis block.
Right, the Genesis block. It mentions, what was it, a headline from the Times? Something about bank bailouts.
Exactly. Almost like a hint at the disruption Bitcoin could bring to traditional finance.
A little like a watch out world, things are about to change kind of message.
You got it. So we've got this brilliant mind, shakes up the financial system, then vanishes.
Naturally, everyone wants to know who is Satoshi Nakamoto.
Right. And there have been a few names thrown around over the years, some more plausible than others.
What about Dorian Nakamoto? He was in the news a while back, wasn't he?
Yeah, back in 2014, Newsweek published this article claiming he was the creator of Bitcoin.
That must have caused quite a stir.
It did. It was huge news at the time.
But wasn't there a lot of pushback on that article?
Oh yeah, tons. The evidence was pretty circumstantial, focusing mostly on Dorian's background in engineering and a few things he said that could be interpreted in different ways.
So maybe take it out of context a little.
Could be. And then later on, Dorian clarified that he was actually misquoted and denied any involvement in Bitcoin.
And wasn't there a story about one of his former coworkers who regretted adding fuel to that whole media frenzy? Something about feeling bad that Dorian was targeted and hurt by the experience?
Yeah, I remember that. It's a reminder that in the middle of all this mystery, there are real people whose lives can be affected.
A good reminder for sure. Okay, so Dorian seems as a no-go. Who else is in the running? What about Craig Wright? He's been pretty vocal about claiming to be Satoshi.
Craig Wright, yeah, he hasn't been shy about it, that's for sure.
He's even been in court over it.
Yeah. Tried to use legal action to back up his claims.
How'd that go?
Not, well, to be honest, a UK court basically said, nope, found that the evidence he gave wasn't enough to prove he was connected to Bitcoin.
Ouch. So much for that theory.
But it gets more complicated. Remember how the original Bitcoin white paper used the word we sometimes?
Oh, right. Like we propose and things like that.
Exactly. And that little word has made some people wonder if maybe Bitcoin wasn't a solo project.
Like maybe a team effort. A secret group of tech geniuses or something.
Ooh, you got it. It's a theory that's been bouncing around online forums and in the Bitcoin community for ages.
I can see how that would get people talking.
Yeah.
So we've got a quiet engineer, a self-proclaimed creator, and the possibility of a whole secret team. Any other contenders we should know about?
Well, there's Nick Szabo. He's a big name in cryptography and digital currencies.
So this guy's a serious player.
Oh, yeah. He's known for developing the concept of smart contracts, which are basically contracts written in code that can execute themselves.
Wow, self-executing contracts. Sounds futuristic.
It is, and he even created something called BitGold back in 2008.
BitGold. That name rings a bell.
It does, doesn't it? And when you compare BitGold to Bitcoin, The similarities are pretty striking.
Both about creating a decentralized digital currency system,
That's right. And then there's this little linguistic detail. Sabo used the word unforgeable when he was writing about Bitgold.
which is a key concept in Bitcoin, right? Like making transactions secure.
Exactly. So that little word has added fuel to the Sabo Satoshi fire.
It's like a puzzle with all these little pieces that could fit together.
And don't forget that Reddit thread you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah. There are some pretty wild theories floating around out there.
Some say the creation of Bitcoin was simply too complex for one person to pull off.
Too much brain power for one individual.
Right. They argue that you'd need expertise in cryptography, computer science, economics, maybe even game theory.
So maybe it was a collective effort.
A secret group of brilliant minds working together to bring this revolutionary technology to the world.
And then there are those who think it might be something even more out there.
Like a government agency, the CIA creating Bitcoin.
I can already see the conspiracy theories forming.
It's definitely got people talking. But here's a question. Does it even really matter who Satoshi is?
Ooh, that's a good one. Is it just a fun mystery, or does Satoshi's identity have real implications?
Well, to get to the bottom of that, we need to figure out why Bitcoin itself matters so much.
So beyond the whodunit aspect, what's the big deal with Bitcoin?
That's what we're going to dive into next. Stay tuned, folks.
All right, we're back. Last time, we were knee-deep in the mystery of Satoshi Nakamoto.
Trying to figure out who's behind the curtain.
Exactly. We looked at Bitcoin's origins, met some of the usual suspects.
But now it's time to tackle the why.
The why. Why does Bitcoin even matter?
That's the core of it, right? It's captured the attention of everyone, from techies to, like, Nobel Prize winners.
So for our listener who's thinking, what's all the hype about? Let's break it down.
Okay.
We talked about how Bitcoin is decentralized, no one entity controlling it.
Right.
But what does that actually mean in the real world? Like, what are the pros and cons?
Well, one of the biggest things is its potential to, like, really shake up traditional finance.
Disrupt the system.
Yeah. Imagine a world where you don't even need a bank to send money.
No more bank fees.
Potentially. And cross-border transactions. Easy, cheap.
That would be huge.
Yeah.
Especially for people who don't have easy access to traditional banking.
Exactly. Think about microlending in developing countries. People there often struggle to get loans, lack of credit history or collateral.
Right.
Bitcoin can step in by making peer-to-peer lending possible.
Cutting out the middleman.
Exactly. Giving people direct access to capital.
So they can start businesses, improve their lives.
That's the idea. It's like financial empowerment.
Wow. So instead of relying on these big institutions,
Yeah.
people can be their own bankers.
In a way.
It's almost like financial democracy or something.
You put it that way.
Oh.
And it's not just microlending either.
Really?
It's been used for fundraising during humanitarian crises, too.
Oh, wow. So getting help directly to those in need.
Quick and direct donations, no delays or fees.
Bitcoin sounds like the perfect solution then.
It definitely has its strengths, but it's not without its critics.
Of course.
One of the biggest concerns is its volatility.
Ah, its value going up and down like crazy.
Exactly. Makes it a risky investment.
I can see that. So maybe not the best for everyday spending just yet.
That's one of the challenges, yeah. And then there's the scalability issue.
Scalability.
Meaning the Bitcoin network can only process a limited number of transactions per second.
Oh, okay.
Which can lead to delays and higher fees when things get busy.
So it's got this revolutionary potential.
Right.
But it also has these practical hurdles it needs to overcome.
Exactly. And that leads to a big debate about Bitcoin's real purpose.
Like, what is it really meant for?
Some people think it's like digital gold, something to hold on to as an investment.
Okay.
Others see it as a currency, a way to buy and sell things.
And then some people think it's all just a bubble waiting to burst.
There are a lot of opinions out there.
Yeah, it's like everyone's trying to figure out what to make of it.
It's a new financial landscape, right?
Totally new terrain. So with all these differing opinions, what's the verdict?
Well, it's still early days.
We're still figuring it all out.
Exactly. And this brings us back to Satoshi Nakamoto.
I thought we were moving past the whole whodunit thing.
We are, in a way, but think about this. What if we never find out who Satoshi is?
What if the mystery remains unsolved?
Right. What would that say about decentralized systems? Maybe ideas can take on a life of their own, separate from their creator.
So maybe the mystery itself is part of what makes Bitcoin so interesting.
It's like this symbol of its freedom from traditional power structures.
But if no one knows who Satoshi is, who's steering the ship?
Good question, right? Who's responsible for guiding Bitcoin, making sure it's used ethically?
These are some pretty deep questions.
We're just scratching the surface here.
To really understand how Bitcoin is playing out in the world, we need to look at specific examples.
See how different countries are handling it, the regulations and stuff.
That sounds like a good place to pick up next time. All right, we're back for the final part of our Bitcoin deep dive.
Rounding it out.
Exactly. We've explored the whole Satoshi mystery, talked about Bitcoin's potential to really change things.
Yeah.
Now let's get practical. Exactly. How's Bitcoin actually being used out there in the world? And what about regulations?
Well, it's interesting, Bitcoin's whole decentralized thing creates this kind of push and pull between its philosophy and, what governments want to do.
So like a clash between a borderless system and countries wanting to keep control.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tug of war.
Like Bitcoin is this wild horse, and no one's quite sure how to handle it.
I like that analogy. And different countries are trying different things.
So yeah.
Like El Salvador, they went all in, made Bitcoin legal tender right alongside their own currency.
Wow. A bold move
It was. Shows how much they believe in its potential.
to empower people, bring in
It's
investment.
like the idea. But then you've got other countries that are like way more cautious.
Cracking down on crypto exchanges.
Yeah, some have even banned Bitcoin completely.
Really,
It's a mixed bag out there, everyone figuring things out as they go.
a global experiment.
Exactly. Which leaves regular people with a lot of questions.
Like, what happens if I buy something with Bitcoin? How do taxes work?
Yeah, and what if you lose your digital wallet? Is there any protection?
Those are all good questions.
Yeah.
What about here in Australia? How are things playing out here?
Well, the Australian Taxation Office, they've made it clear that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are assets.
So they're watching.
Oh, yeah. They've got guidelines on how to report gains and losses from trading.
So even though it's decentralized, the tax man's still keeping tabs.
Pretty much. What about actually using Bitcoin to buy things here?
Yeah. Is that a thing?
It's definitely happening, though not as common as regular payment methods.
Okay.
We've seen some cafes, restaurants, online stores accepting Bitcoin,
So it's starting to trickle into everyday life.
slowly but surely. But who knows what the future holds?
So many factors at play.
Technology keeps advancing, regulations are changing, public opinion is shifting.
It's a dynamic landscape.
Absolutely. So for our listeners who've been with us on this journey, we've gone deep.
Deep. Started with this intriguing mystery, explored Bitcoin's potential, and now we've seen how it's playing out in the real world.
It's a story that's still being written,
But one thing's for sure, Bitcoin has gotten people talking about money, power, technology.
and sparked a debate that's going to continue for a while.
Who knows, maybe someday we'll crack the code and find out who Satoshi really is.
Or maybe the mystery will live on, part of the Bitcoin legend.
A fitting end to our deep dive, I think.
A mystery that endures, technology that keeps evolving.
And a world forever changed.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be back with more deep dives soon.
Until then, keep those brains working. Maybe you'll uncover the next big mystery.